The Renaissance architect Leon Battista Alberti said, I am every day more and more convinced of the truth of Pythagoras' saying that nature is sure to act consistently. I conclude that the same numbers by means of which the agreement of sounds affect our ears with delight are the very same that please our eyes and our minds. We shall therefore borrow our rules for the finishing of our proportions from the musicians and from those things wherein nature shows herself most excellent and complete. Alberti went on to develop the formula for perspective in painting, a way of mathematically organizing our vision. Andrea Palladio, another and rather more famous Renaissance architect, used the same ratios in the buildings that he built in the 16th century, which have been emulated all over the world as designed of harmonic visual and spatial relationships that are pleasing to the eye. Jefferson's Monticello, hundreds of museums and monuments all over the world, they all owe their proportions to Palladio and to the cosmic musical ratios that he and others believed gave structure to all things. Oh, hi, I didn't see you guys come in. I was just reading a little bit more of How Music Works by David Byrne, lead singer of the Talking Heads. I really got to check this one out. I brought it with me because I haven't read it yet. So when I read a great excerpt like that, where he's talking about music and the harmonies and the relationships, and if you even know just a little bit about music, you know that a chord is 1 3 5, and that's obviously a pattern. That's a mathematical pattern. That's a musical pattern, and like they're saying there, it's a pattern now in buildings that they took this proportional ratio of music that sounds good and somehow created a proportional ratio of architecture that looks good. I don't know how it works either, but it sounds great. It sounds really cool. So, but let's check out the Bitcoin news since we're here on Bitcoin Talk Show. I'll even try to go full screen. The price of Bitcoin is up 0.11% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 6,568, a high of 6,876, and a low of 6,475. Ouch. That's $1 for 15,244 Satoshis. We've broken the 15,000 Satoshi barrier in the wrong direction. Other news today. The Mad Bitcoin's desktop computer drive was a success. We raised our goal and more, even so much that we might even raise our goal and try to raise a whole Bitcoin. Right now we have a 0.62. Thanks so much to recent donors 0.00729979, 0.00074, and 0.5. Donating Bitcoin supports the show, which is especially important while the price of Bitcoin is down. And the price of Bitcoin is still down, even if you zoom out all the way. But it still looks kind of up to me. It's up from way down here. It's up here. That's better, right? And support the World Crypto Network by subscribing to our Patreon. 19 patrons support us with $77 a month, and 83 patrons support Mad Bitcoins with $449 a month, which is also excellent. Thank you for your support. Later on, we'll read a little bit more of To Satoshi with Love, a little novel that I wrote. But for now, let's go to the news. Cryptocurrencies lose $42 billion after South Korean Bourse hack. I don't think these two exchanges and this events are one-to-one linked and 100% related. It's nice of Bloomberg to assume that the South Korean hack was part of this, and maybe the people of South Korea have lost faith in their Bitcoin exchanges, or perhaps they've lost faith in Bitcoin. But the rest of us, this might just be a chart problem, one of those lines that we crossed where they all had to sell like a bunch of lemmings, and then we'll cross some other line and they'll all have to buy like a bunch of lemmings. There's a lot of lemming activity in this market. Bitcoin's collapse accelerates, falls to lowest since February. More mean-spirited news from Bloomberg kicking Bitcoin while it's down. But it is true that the price of the digital coin fell as much as 4.6% Tuesday to 6,450, bringing the slide to the year to more than 50%. It's down from a record high of 19,511 reached in December, the culmination of more than a 1,400% surge seen in 2017 as Bitcoin burst onto the mainstream. Kyle Samony, managing partner at Austin crypto based Multicoin Capital, said in an email, I don't think this is driven by any particular news. It's just the general downtrend after the 2017 run, and I generally agree. Lightning. Litecoin creator Charlie Lee shows support for the Bitcoin Lightning Network. Well, of course he does, because Charlie Lee's a reasonable guy, and when he sees good technology like the Lightning Network, he wants to support it. Litecoin, of course, famously added SegWit before Bitcoin, and by many was seen as a great testing and proving ground for the new Bitcoin software. After all, once it was running on Litecoin, the rallying call became, well, it's running on Litecoin. Thank you to Charlie Lee for his support of Bitcoin and the Lightning Network. Is Bitcoin building support above 6,000? Now we're talking. Now we're getting the good news out there. Tell me about it. Tell me about the Fibonacci lines and the ratios. David Johnson, CEO of cryptocurrency tasking platform Latium, says, looking at the history, we don't see any major reason for major support between 6,600 and 6,000. Of course, you have the psychological $6,000 level, but I don't feel that will be enough to stop downward pressure. Ouch. They say there's a liquidity vacuum in Bitcoin at the moment, according to Matty Greenspan, senior market analyst for social trading platform eToro. This is what caused the exaggerated break below the 7,100 support. Because the Bitcoin markets are struggling with low trading volume, the digital currency is more vulnerable to significant price swings caused by large market participants or whales making sizable trades. With daily volumes below $5 billion, the market could potentially be swayed by a very large player. Although such a player would be risking a lot, as the CFTC is now investigating price manipulation in Bitcoin. Even as Bitcoin plunges, it's still more popular than Beyonce. Crypto expert Brian Kelly says, this is great. Brian Kelly's back. The great Nautilus coin pumper, the pumper of Bcash, the hero of Ripple, the savior of Stellar. Brian Kelly, the man who loves to pump things, is now defending Bitcoin. Good on him. It's probably good that we've got some of the speculative froth out of here, but there's still more Google searches than Beyonce in Bitcoin. Very nice. Very good. Blah, blah, blah. 6,500 level. Blah, blah, blah. I like to see polls. And that's it for that article. Ripple CEO. Bitcoin is controlled by China. Methinks the lady doth protest too much. Is the Ripple CEO projecting here? Is he really talking about Ripple? Let's see what else he said. Blockchain will not disrupt banks. Wow, that's interesting. He says it will play an important role in the way our system works. It's a short-sighted view. I'm confused. It does sound like his views are short-sighted. Oh, he told the crowd Bitcoin is not the panacea we all thought it would be. Well, if it's a panacea, we all know panacea is a false thing. It doesn't exist. It's like calling someplace a utopia. You know that utopia means no place. He's saying that there is no place that is perfect. Let's see why there's no bit or coin in Ripple's name. The smartest thing is not to have bit or coin. I could kind of agree with that. That kind of makes sense. Let's see. Bitcoin is controlled by China. He disagrees with Steve Wozniak, who sees the world where Bitcoin is the primary currency, and he says that's absurd. He doesn't think there's any major economy that will allow that to happen. By the way, it doesn't make sense. He's really worried about this. Then he says that he owns Bitcoin. And at the end, he says, I'm not an investing advisor. Ignore everything I just said. So The CEO of Ripple makes a lot of confusing and derogatory statements towards Bitcoin and then says you should just ignore everything he said. So it just doesn't sound like a very serious person. He doesn't sound very serious about this. But oh well, you've got to say the right things to make your coin go up. We all understand that. And you are watching Bitcoin Talk Show live after dark. Your calls answered. And we're going to get right to that. Here we are. We're going to open up the phone lines. You can call us on Skype, World Crypto Network, all one word. If you don't call, I'll read a book. And if you don't call after a little while, we will end the show. We are just trying out different time zones here. We're trying to spread out the Bitcoin Talk Show so that everyone gets a chance to call in, and so that we can, like I said in the chat, tap the power of the audience. Because Bitcoin Talk Show really is about the calls. It's about you. You are driving this show. If you want to talk about Deadpool and the Marvel Universe, maybe we're going in that direction. I doubt it. But you probably want to talk about Bitcoin and the fact that the price is down still a little bit, but maybe it's going up a little bit. But then again, no one knows. But we all like to speculate. So go ahead and give us a call right now on World Crypto Network, all one word, on Skype. There's 107 watchers, it says in the chat. Someone call. No one's reading. Oh, he doesn't want the reading. Jeremy wants me to talk about Bob Ross. Oh, I wish I had my toy. It's downstairs. But I got this great toy today. It's kind of ridiculous. It was only $10. I had to buy it. It's Deadpool dressed as Bob Ross, the artist that painted the little happy trees on PBS. And he's got a big Bob Ross fro. And I think there's actually a point in one of the Deadpool trailers or something where he actually is doing the Bob Ross, or one of their ridiculous promotional things for last year. So it is kind of makes sense. It's kind of reasonable, but it's one of those Funko Pop toys with the big head, and he bobbles a little bit. So I thought that was super fun. And then I was walking around the Summerlin Mall today, and I went to I think it was Hot Topic or Spencer's Gifts or something like that, and they had a whole bunch of Bob Ross stuff. I was blown away. They had a like a T-shirt Bob Ross. They had a phone case you could get. They had a fine collared shirt with like little images of it. It was amazing. They had a whole Bob Ross section. So apparently the hipsters have made Bob Ross cool again. I don't know. I just thought he was a guy that taught painting, and he was really patient with you. And I've definitely watched his show and done a painting. Somewhere I have one with the happy little trees. He always used to add them in the background. So I put some tweets out today about Bob Ross. So I thought that was fun. Am I going to Dogecoin? Not planned to right now. I was traveling a lot, and I kind of need to cool it out from the traveling, get on a regular schedule, try to do that. It is only Vancouver. It is still a couple weeks away. I'd like to go. I think there's some really nice people at Dogecoin. I know Jackson Palmer is going to go there, and I know that Gary and the DDP, the Decentralized Dance Party, are going to be there. And I met them at Burning Man once. They're great people. So I would like to be there, but it's not looking that good. I feel kind of good taking it easy at home, chilling. They say an original Bob Ross can go for around $5,000. Imagine that. That's pretty good. And it's funny to think about Bob Ross or Mr. Rogers, or the people I used to watch on PBS. There's a new Mr. Rogers documentary coming out soon. Please, Won't You Be My Neighbor? It looks fantastic. The trailer is available if you want to cry. It's been available for a little while. I've watched at least 2 of them, and I think I cried at both of them. And in other Mr. Rogers related news, Tom Hanks is going to play Mr. Rogers in an actual movie based on his life. And fingers crossed, I'm hoping. I don't think there's any skeletons in his closet. I don't think it's going to be a hit piece. I hope that we're going to come out of it feeling like, wow, Mr. Rogers is really great. And of course, Tom Hanks is a great actor, and I think he can do it. So we're looking at the chat. And remember, put a question in the chat. Help us direct where we're going to go. I can talk. I can read. If you want to call us at Skype World Crypto Network, we can do that. Otherwise, we'll try to keep the show going until 8 o'clock. Vention MG Tao has a $5 tip. He says, I've got the Eclair wallet on my phone. I'd like to tip with Lightning. Have you looked into setting up a Lightning donation address? And Okay, so I have to admit to be kind of lazy with new technology. I used to be more cutting edge. I installed Windows 95 with 38 floppy disks illegally before it came out because I was so excited to try out new software. And I used to be well into beta software and beta Windows and all kinds of things. I'm not that into it anymore. I like my software that just runs good. I've heard there's an Android version of a Lightning wallet. I don't have an Android device, so I can't try that. I've heard that there's a Zap wallet online just through a web browser. I should probably try that. Just kind of being lazy about it right now. I don't have any good excuse. So I would like to try that. I'd like to get Lightning going. And I'd like to take Lightning tips and be a part of it and to buy those stickers that everybody has on Twitter. I'm envious of your stickers. I have sticker envy. But sometimes I'm not the hippest on the new technology. I think Lightning's great. I think they should have an iOS wallet. But okay, so Eclair is a send only wallet. Okay, so that's cool for sending. I guess you would send some Bitcoin to it, create a channel, and then you would send Lightning after that. I don't know. It would be interesting to check that out. So I would like to check out a Lightning wallet for sure. Okay, let's see. Yeah, let's see. Hodlers need to have a few Bitcoin to sell at the top of these bubbles and put Bitcoin strong hands at the bottom. Yeah, you do have to take more profit at the tops. I know this isn't the best time to talk about taking profit, and we're all in the they don't want me to curse. They're all in the S word here. But and it's okay to be down. I've been down a lot before. So um when the original 1200 went up and went but back down to 200, I found I had to uninstall Blockfolio, or I didn't have that at the time, but I had to uninstall those kinds of apps. I had to stop looking at it and stop thinking about what I used to have and what I have now. So that might be useful to you. And this strategy got me through those bad times, and then it went back up, and my little stack is worth as much as it used to be, and it's worth a little more. So we're still doing all right. So they say in the chat, other things that we're talking about, Zap on web wallet. Yeah, I want to check out Zap. That's supposed to be on the web. Let's see. There's bigpictureblog.net and read the present to see the truth about life and death. It can change the world. You will see what I mean when you read the first page. That sounds pretty cool. Okay, we'll see. I'm hoping for some kind of nudity or something. Ah, no, it's just a book. Okay, 4 pages. Then there's like 130 pages. Okay. Okay, well, I can't really read this right now, but I'll try to take a look at it later. It looks cool. How likely is it for the average Joe to mine Bitcoin now and not go into debt or ever reach ROI? I don't suggest home Bitcoin mining. I think it was fun in the old days. I never got to do it when it was one CPU, one vote, but I think that would have been especially fun. Um, we had some miners in my house for a while, and mainly all they did was make noise when I tried to watch movies. The other thing is that the market moves so quickly, you have to turn over your miners in just a couple of months. And if you're just working out of the house, you might not be able to do it fast enough to turn them over. Additionally, mining is the kind of thing like driving an Uber, where you think it's a really good idea and you're going to make lots of money and you get to work in your spare time, or maybe you're thinking you don't have to work. And it turns out that it costs electricity and it costs upkeep and it costs your time. And there's just a lot more costs than you think about. With the Uber driving, they found out recently that because of insurance and wear and tear and damage on your car and getting new tires and the various things you're going to have to do by driving that many miles, most Uber drivers are paid about $5 an hour. It's a disaster. They're just not taking into mind the full costs of what they're doing. And with the mining, that might be another problem. It says, Jeremy says, I need to mount the camera to the ceiling to stop the typing shakes. Well, I do still have a temporary desk here. It's funny, I have a fantastic computer that's going to last me years and years. And is amazing. I have it on this cheap IKEA desk that I bought because it was already built, and it was $17. It was in the scratch or dent section. Yeah, I need to get a better desk. It's not big enough. But the other IKEA desk I got rocked back and forth, and I just couldn't take it. And I don't know if it was just that one desk or the whole new line of desks. I used to have an IKEA desk at home that was great, but it had 3 legs. It didn't have 2 legs. It's me, boss lady says in the chat that Uber knew that all along. Yes, they did. Everyone's excited about the gig economy because we all have this false belief that we're going to benefit. That I could show up and do a TaskRabbit job and it won't cost me my time and I won't have to pay to get there. And that you could show up to do Uber and that it wouldn't ruin your tires and that it wouldn't ruin your engine eventually, and these kinds of things. The gig economy is really about taking advantage of the people that do the gigs. As much as I love the gig economy, I like having food brought to me, undeniably. I like that. But I do know what's happening. So they're saying in the chat, Lowell, I was watching the movie Airplane last night. Remember the disco dance floor scene? Oh, he's such a good dancer. It's a full-on Saturday Night Fever reenactment. And yeah, I just got Airplane on Blu-ray too, Airplane 1 and 2 package. And I just got into Blu-rays lately. I got a PS4 that plays Blu-rays. And what I like about coming into Blu-rays late is the same way I'm coming into PS4 and these other things later. Everything's on sale. And I'm getting Blu-rays for $5 a piece, so I don't care what they cost. Let's see. They're talking about the decentralized dance party. That sounds cool. Have I told you guys about the DDP? They're pretty cool guys. They've got these boom boxes they'll carry around. Then they've got a radio transmitter in a backpack, and they'll broadcast the song to all the boom boxes. And then they'll have a spontaneous party in a place like an airport or a bus station or somewhere where there usually isn't a party. And normal people will just come out and they don't need drugs and they don't need alcohol and they'll just dance and have a good time. And that's what the DDP is about. And their leader, Gary, writes essays and things about the power of dancing and the power of music and peace. And he travels around doing that. So it's really cool. Hey, we've got a caller. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Oh, wow. Cool. I'm Zach. I'm in Christchurch, New Zealand.
All right, Zach in New Zealand. What's your thoughts about Bitcoin today?
I'd just like to say to begin, this is my first ever Skype call. I've actually downloaded Skype so I can talk to you, Thomas.
You did it. It worked.
Am I coming through all right? Because you're on speaker and I'm on my mobile. I just downloaded the app.
No, you sounds good. And I can't even hear myself back on the speaker, so it must be working.
Oh, that's great. It means I can do things while I talk to you. Yeah, I'm just here in Christchurch, New Zealand. So I don't know if you get many people from New Zealand calling you up there.
No, it's great. It's exciting. So do you guys have Bitcoin ATMs or meetups out there? How'd you hear about Bitcoin?
Oh, how'd I find out about it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, probably Max Kaiser, just on YouTube, really.
Oh, yeah. He was a very early Bitcoiner. Spread the word to a lot of people.
Yeah, like at the time, because I don't know, we had a huge earthquake about 8 years ago here in Christchurch, and most of the city kind of fell down.
Oh, yeah. And so you needed something after that you could put your money into, and you found Bitcoin?
No, I just had a lot of time on my hands because there's a lot of unemployment in Christchurch. There's a lot of people having to move different rental properties and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So I had like a lot of things going on at the time. And I remember just like really getting into finance and how the world worked and, you know, a lot of conspiracy videos on YouTube. But yeah, I think back then the whole idea of fractional reserve banking was coming to the forefront. And people were learning that money was actually created out of debt opposed to deposits. So I was really intrigued about all of that. And I just think, you know, the algorithms and whatnot in YouTube led me to Bitcoin.
Well, that is great that I wish people would wake up to fractional reserve. I think it's a very important issue.
Yeah, yeah, and I thought Bitcoin's wonderful because it is, it's like gold in the sense that, I mean, it's money you're kind of pulling out, and we're pulling out of the ether with Bitcoin, pulling out of the ground with gold. So I thought this money is, really, not made out of debt. This is, kind of like a cleansing to the whole monetary system. But at the time in New Zealand, like there was nowhere to buy Bitcoin.
Nowhere to buy it. So what'd you do? How'd you end up buying it?
What did I do? Well, I tried to go online. I tried to buy it, and in the end, I mean, I was living in a broken city, so I kind of had bigger fish to fry. But it was at the time. I think I remember watching YouTube videos, and you had guys, and they had like upside down cans of ear duster and antifreeze, and they were spraying. I don't think they had gone into ASIC at the time, but they were like, really putting together these big like graphic card machines to mine it. So
Sure.
so my first thought was, I need to mine this Bitcoin. What can I do? I need a computer to mine this Bitcoin. A powerful enough computer. So it was quite it was I really believed in it, but it was quite just heartbreaking when I look back now to kind of be like, oh my God, I kind of missed out on that opportunity to get in back then. But then again, I had bigger fish to fry, and it was a little bit more complicated than it is now to set up mining and whatnot. So those early adopters really have actually given me an opportunity later on to get into it. And I've probably been investing in Bitcoin, Thomas, for just over a year now.
Mm-hmm.
I purchased my first Bitcoin. I think it was about, well, not my first Bitcoin, but my first, I think it was $20 worth of Bitcoin.
Sure. And that's a good point. You don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin all at once. You can buy $20 worth. You don't have to do it all.
Absolutely. So I used local Bitcoins, and I remember I was like, oh my goodness, there's local, this is like, kind of 3 years after when I first heard about it. And I looked back into Bitcoin, and I was like, oh my goodness, the price is, about $1,000. I'm like, oh, I need to buy this. And by the time I managed to purchase some local Bitcoins, I think my first purchase was about midnight. I deposited cash at a smart ATM here in Christchurch.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing I knew, Bitcoin showed up on local Bitcoins. I was like, this is awesome.
Fantastic.
And I kept moving forward, and there's a company in New Zealand, what's it called? It's called My Crypto Saver now, and you can actually buy Bitcoin every week. So for the past year, I've been dollar cost averaging. And yeah, I've been buying about $20, sometimes $30 a week. And yeah, I've brought Bitcoin when it was, $2,000, $3,000. I've brought Bitcoin when it was $18,000, $19,000. And I'll tell you what, when you dollar cost average, and I know you say this as well, Thomas, but just for your listeners, it really takes the emotion out of it. But I would have hated to have, put lots of money in at $18,000 and then see it reduce back down to where it is now.
Sure.
But to be quite honest, just by dollar cost averaging, I think I'm breaking even, probably slightly ahead, just by doing $20 a week. And it really does add up. It really, really does.
Well, it's so hard for people to understand that because it is delayed gratification. Putting that $20 into Bitcoin could be putting it into a savings account or stocks or anything like that. But that's how you save. That's how you accumulate. And if you believe that Bitcoin is going to go up in the future and you believe this is just a temporary downtrend, then it's a good idea to accumulate. And it's too hard to figure out exactly where the perfect tops are and the perfect bottoms are. That's why a nice strategy like dollar cost averaging, where you're putting just a little bit in each week, can work out for you. And I think it's great for the audience and for anyone that's listening to try that.
Absolutely. And it actually really makes you want the price to go down sometimes. I mean, for example, what my crypto saver do, I believe, like I transfer the money on a Monday, and then they gather everyone's money, and I believe I think they use Bitstamp. They do like a international bank transfer to Bitstamp.
Mm-hmm.
So all that money goes to Bitstamp, and then on Friday, whatever the price is, they will then send you, your Bitcoin. They probably just batch all the transactions. So I'm pretty much paying maybe $1.50 for every time I purchase Bitcoin, and you can buy anything from $20. I think the limit for them now is 2,000. I mean, obviously not everyone has 2,000, but at times like this, I'm like, I hope Bitcoin goes down more because on Friday my order's coming through. So it really does change your mindset when you are doing that dollar cost averaging. But I'll tell you what, when Bitcoin was, $8,000-9,000 and it was going up so quickly, like it gave me heart palpitations. I was like, I need to buy more. I need to be putting through more each week.
Sure.
You see it go down, you kind of really rethink and say, hey, you know what? No one can predict the price of this. I mean, it is very volatile. It just depends on how much money is coming in, how much money is going out. How much money is going into Bitcoin, how much money is coming out of Bitcoin, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not even the price to me. This is going to sound a bit weird. I'm probably left field, but in a way, I kind of almost look at Bitcoin as quite spiritual. Just the origin. I mean, it sounds like kind of cultish, but I mean, the origins of Bitcoin, just how it's come about, how everything's worked out. There's almost that kind of the hand of providence guiding this monetary revolution, if you will.
Well, I agree with you. I think it is a little spiritual, and I don't think it's that hard to think about it. I mean, for me, I know personally, and I've told this story before, but I like telling it. I was just a normal person trying to learn about the world, and I was trying to learn through Aikido. And so I learned how to flip people and how a small person can flip a larger person. And I thought about the world's problems, and I didn't like the banks, and I didn't like the way the central banks were printing money forever and lending it out for weapons and war. And I thought, how can we fix that? And I thought, that's impossible. I'm such a small little person, and the problems are so big. But then when I got into Bitcoin and I started realizing that if everyone else could agree to use this Bitcoin system, and at first I said, no way. I don't believe anybody's going to be tricked into using this thing. This is World of Warcraft money. I could see that the early people would get rich. But to me, I thought that they'd already gotten rich when it went from $1 to $30. I was like, oh, I blew it. $1 was the buy. 30 is terrible. Ignore it for 3 years. I come back later, it goes to $250. And then I started to realize if we all agreed that this was money, and we all agreed that this was a tool that we could use to, purchase things and exchange goods and use what money's used for, the real true money, not printed endless government money, that we could change things and that a small person could flip a large person. So in that way, I'm very religious about Bitcoin, and I do think that it is a spiritual thing.
Absolutely. I think that there's a book I read, I can barely remember, I think it's called Celestial Prophecies.
Mm-hmm.
And it had kind of 7 kind of points in it. It's just kind of like a novel. And it said there's something like a critical mass, and like people can kind of, it's so random, but people can kind of feel this critical mass coming. And when the critical mass kind of topples over, like, and the idea has come, and even like V for Vendetta, it kind of has that in it. But I mean, when an idea's time has arrived, you cannot stop that idea. Like, ideas need to play out. And yeah, I think the whole digital currency revolution, this idea is going to play out. And I know, like Satoshi, he had his white paper. And even in his white paper, and people talk Bitcoin Cash, people talk Bitcoin, but he said, this is money for the internet. This is the internet of money, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely, man. I really think Satoshi had it. Thanks so much for the call.
We're going to get rid of national currencies. I mean, obviously governments compel their citizens to pay their taxes and, their given currency. And there is an argument for having national currencies in one form or another. But I do think, I mean, I can't predict the future. I mean, one thing about predicting technology is it's always way more advanced than you could even possibly predict. I mean, the craziest person who had predictions about the internet in the late 80s, early 90s, I mean, their predictions have just been blown out of the water. It's gone way beyond what they could have predicted. So, I mean, that will probably happen with cryptocurrencies. But what I do definitely see is this becoming, you want to buy your airfare, you buy it in Bitcoin. The whole, instead of using Visa online, it's going to be Bitcoin. With it, and I believe in a lot of countries, you have the option of using, your SWIFT payment system, through the government, or you have the option of using, hey, Bitcoin at your local dairy. And that's what I see happening. And also, I mean, we all know, I mean, Venezuela is a classic example, or Zimbabwe, these countries which have terrible currencies, I mean, it's going to give people the option to say, hey, my currency's not working. That's a shame. I live in a country which, you know, economically I'm downtrodden. I'm going to put my money into, you know, cryptocurrency. I'm going to put my money into Bitcoin on the internet, and I'm going to participate in this economy. And, you know, Bitcoin itself is, you know, is a global economy. I don't know how it's going to work with taxes. I mean, that's going to be a bit concerning going forward, but, you know, that's what it's going to come down to. I mean, it's going to come down to you either manage your national currencies well, or we're going to go and use Bitcoin, because we know Bitcoin's a store of value for the simple fact they're not printing it into oblivion.
And this is the first time they've had any competition. No one has ever competed with them on the currency level before. They had a couple of challengers, maybe something like eGold, or I forget the other one, the other digital money one that they had, but they crushed both of those challengers, right?
Yes.
They can't crush Bitcoin. We kept looking in all the early days. Your first thought is, I'd like to just make a copy of this, and then I'll have 2 Bitcoins, and this is awesome. But that doesn't work. After that, you think, well, how can you crash this? How can we wreck the servers that have Bitcoin and, you know, make it so that I can make a copy of it, or, you know, confuse the servers, whatever it is. You can't do that either. It's a really hard system to break, and that's why it's just so impressive to see it keep going after all these years, and to, you know, have no troubles technically, really. It's still going fine.
I think that's why I say there's a spiritual element to it as well. I mean, it amazes me every day. I check the price and I see the price, you know, sorry, the market cap. I'm like, I'm amazed it's not at $1 trillion. I'm like, don't these people see what's coming? And they don't. It's like they've been blinded. I'm like, why aren't these institutions pouring bucket loads of money into Bitcoin? Why isn't the US government, or, you know, the Eurozone, you know, investing a lot of money? I mean, this is the new money, guys. Don't you want to get in first and get it at a discounted rate? And it's as if they've been spiritually blinded to what's coming. I mean, I know there aren't that many technocrats in government, but there are. I mean, not every, you know, government official is an idiot. Let's be fair. I mean, there are smart people out there, and granted, some of them will probably be personally buying into it. But it just amazes me that I mean, I don't know. Maybe the US government has Satoshi's Bitcoins. Who knows? But I mean, if they're smart enough to have 1 million Bitcoins, good on them. But it amazes me that these big institutions aren't really, you know, jumping on it, because whatever country kind of embraces, you know, even on the sly, embraces this crypto revolution, they're going to have a huge advantage going into the future. Do you have any? Can you speak to that? Maybe. I mean, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I definitely agree with you there that they're going to have what I see it as is a game of high stakes poker, and they're all sitting around the table, and they all know Bank of Japan, Bank of the United States, U.S. Bank, all these central banks, all these big things. They know at some point one of them is going to break the deal, and that one of them is going to start buying crypto. And they're all doing it secretly right now. You have to imagine in some kind of small way, they're moving their money around. They're trying to get a position, because all the things we've said about Bitcoin disrupting the banks and destroying the banks, there's actually a place for banks in Bitcoin. They just have to change. They have to become Bitcoin banks. And if you're going to be a Bitcoin bank, you have to have a large amount of Bitcoin. And if the banks don't get their large amount of Bitcoin in time, they can't be banks anymore. So they're all sitting around the table saying that they're going to play ball and they're not going to buy Bitcoin. But if one of them breaks big time publicly and has to say that we took on a 5% stake or a 10% stake or even a 1% stake of their reserves in Bitcoin, all the other ones have to take it on. And then the risky ones have to take on 3% or 5%. And then pretty soon the banks are holding a lot of Bitcoin, and it's going to be really hard for normal people to get any Bitcoin.
Yeah, I wonder how that would look, a bank being a Bitcoin bank. I have thought about that. I mean, it would be great if I could log into got like the ANZ and ASB and Westpac and all these different banks here in New Zealand. But it'd be great if I could just log onto my online banking app and be able to actually say, hey, I want to change my New Zealand dollars into Bitcoin, and I want to be able to spend in Bitcoin to the effect of I want to buy milk from the dairy. So I say, okay, that's fine. I'm going to change my money into Bitcoin, but I can still use my, I don't know what you guys call them there, but your debit card or your FPOS card there. Is that what you call them in the States? Or?
Sure, yeah, debit card, yeah.
Yeah, and just go into the dairy with my debit card. Even if I'm using it on the Swift system, that's fine. The transaction, the dairy owner, charges me on the Swift system. But when the money's taken from my bank, it's taken out of my Bitcoin account with my bank. That's how. Does that make sense, or am I not illustrating that very well?
Oh, I definitely think that's coming, and I think that'll happen. And the main thing that we need these banks for is to trade the money into fiat. The main thing you're going to need is if you have to pay your taxes or you have to pay the government in ways that you can't with Bitcoin, that's what you're going to need these banks for. So there's still a place for them.
Or even they could do some kind of, they could have like a Bitcoin FPOS card, like RFID. In New Zealand, we can do PayWave up to $80. So if you buy some gas and a loaf of bread or some such, you can just PayWave with your debit card. That's what we're very much in PayWave here in New Zealand. So even if they had like a Bitcoin card, and you could just have a PayWave feature on that, so you don't even need to have any screens or anything. You just PayWave your Bitcoin, and if that makes sense as well.
Oh yeah, I think they'll do that, and we have a couple of cards like that in the United States. Some of them have been shut down, some of them are still running, but I do think it's coming soon. But thanks so much for the call, and give us a call anytime here on Skype.
Sorry, Thomas, I keep interrupting you.
No problem, man. I'm excited you got Skype to work.
Yeah, I'll let you get going. Before I do that, I'd just like to say two things. First is I hope Tone Vays wins his bet against is it Crypto Doug or whatever his name is there.
Sure.
So I think he only has like what, 500. If Bitcoin goes down $500, he wins that, doesn't he? It's below 6,000.
Yeah, below 6,000. I think it's a $10,000 bet, is what I've heard.
Yeah. So I'm hoping he wins that. So I've got my fingers crossed for him. Because I think Doug was giving him a bit of a hard time on the technical analysis. And I will say one thing for technical analysis: when you see these big dips and what Bitcoin goes down to, that is really, in my opinion, that is really telling you that there are people like me out there. Like, as I say, I buy every week, and I don't care if the price is $18,000 or $2,000. That money is going to go through every single week. So when you see these bottoming outs on the charts, like I don't know much about technical analysis, but I would say, hey, that's where the bottom is. That's where people like me kick in, who will buy at any price, high or low. So there is something to be said for technical analysis on in that aspect. And I think Doug was using a lot of hubris when he made that bet, thinking, it's never going to, this is going to be the last month it goes below $10,000. And I think Tone was probably using a bit of hubris as well to try and bet against Bitcoin. But in any event, I hope Tone wins. And also, I'd like to say I love what you guys do. It's I think it's amazing. The World Crypto Network. I listen to you guys all the time, and I've learned so much. And I thought I'll give you a call up today. It's just like a privilege to be able to speak to you, Thomas. It really, really is. I think you're an awesome guy, as well as all the other guys you have on the network regularly.
Well, thanks so much for the call, and give us a call anytime.
Thanks, Thomas. You have a good rest of your day. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye. And I think the caller gave us a lot to talk about. One of the things I think we could circle back to is the idea of Satoshi and religion. And is Bitcoin a religion? Do you feel religious about Bitcoin? Does it give you hope? That's one of the most important things that a religion can do. We are standing by for more calls. I was going to start calling people back. We did have a couple of other calls that came in, but instead I'm just going to open it up. Whoever calls first wins. And if you call us now on World Crypto Network, all one word, on Skype. And there we are. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Frederick. I'm calling from Quebec.
All right, Frederick, what's on your mind about Bitcoin tonight?
Okay, let me just shut down the volume there. Just calling just because the last caller said he got his Skype installed, so I figured, hey, I can install it on my phone and I'll give you a call. I've been thinking of calling for a while, listen to your show, and just wanted to chime in on what's going on right now with Bitcoin. Been following it a lot. I sold it a little bit today just to pay the bills.
Sure.
And I'm trying to get a node up and running too. Learning the technology is a big part of it. And I kind of feel that's the best time to do it is when the price is down and there's no real action on the market.
Definitely, I think so, and I think, learning how to run a full node is a great way to learn about Bitcoin. It really gets you right into the network. Are you running it on a Raspberry Pi, or do you have an extra computer, like an old laptop that you're using to run an old node?
It's not running yet. It's on a Raspberry Pi. I'm downloading the blockchain. It's been running for days now. It's insane. It's like at 21% of the blockchain right now.
Oh, it's gonna take a while. I remember it used to take, 3 or 4 days back in the old days, and gosh, it must be up to at least a week, maybe 2 weeks, depending on your connection.
Yeah, I think it's up to 3, 4 days now, and I just keep. Actually, it's kind of a change from looking at the price because the blockchain download keeps going up, so it's much more motivating to look at that than the price these days. So,
There you go.
kind of like a fun project. Yeah. And what really got me interested in downloading it is the Lightning application now. I'm really excited to try to download that and get it working. I think it's a very interesting layer two solution to what we've known for up until now.
I have heard about that, that there is a Lightning node and that I think you might have to run that if you want to receive the Lightning payment, something like that. I don't know the exact technical details of Lightning Net yet, but I do think it's a great way to learn and to learn about more Bitcoin and other things. Can I ask you, have you set up a Trezor or a Ledger, a hardware wallet?
Oh yeah, I bought a Trezor. I got a Trezor during the holidays,
Mhm.
and when I filled it up with from like my computer wallet, it cost me like $100 in transaction fees on December 29th. It was
Sure.
crazy back then, huge fees, and it took a long time too. But I love the Trezor. There's some minor glitches. You know, they had a little problems recently with Coin Market Cap change of the API.
Sure.
They lost the pricing showing up on your Trezor interface. But
You know the price isn't important. 1 Bitcoin is still 1 Bitcoin. Even I know that.
I try to keep it growing all the time. So
Sure, sure.
yeah, I've been wondering what the ledger's like. I've been curious to try to play with both, and yeah, it's just learning the tech is half the fun, I think.
I think so too, and, thanks so much for the call, and, give us a call anytime. One more question, what do you think about Satoshi? Do you think that this is a cult? Do you feel religious about Bitcoin?
I don't. I've gotten rid of one religion in my lifetime, and I'm not looking to join another one. But I
Fair
do
enough,
believe that
fair
some
enough.
people treat it like a cult. It's too bad because I think you're not supposed to question cults. That's why I don't like them. I think Satoshi was not that kind of person. I think he invited people to ask questions and to figure out how the code worked. I don't think if he didn't, the code would not be open source. I think it's open source for a reason. It's there for people to understand and to play with it.
I think that's a great, explanation, and it's in that way, I think it's much better than a cult because it's like science. It's like a scientific, group or something where we can all discuss it, and you can have your opinions about it, and the actual code itself is available to the people. And it's funny to go immediately with a biblical reference here, but if you guys recall, in the early days, only the priest could read the Bible. Furthermore, only the priest could read, if we're really talking. And then the Bible would even be in Latin. It wouldn't be in the language of the people. It wasn't until they were translated in the Netherlands and England and places like this that the people even had a chance of reading the actual code of the religion. So in that way,
It's kind of what's happening now. Is like only a select few people can actually understand the code. You know, I
mhm,
can't even code Bitcoin. I can install a node or something like that, but and
sure.
I understand much more than a lot of my friends. But I still don't know like the tip of the iceberg.
Well, and that's the level we're at with science. A lot of scientific things that we use and things that keep us alive, we have no idea how they work. We just have to trust the experts.
Yeah, and yeah, you can actually question them. That's That's the good thing. You couldn't question the priest; they would like throw you in jail or banish you from the religion. But you can actually question the expert and try to understand. There's actually a possibility of learning throughout the questioning.
That is a much better way, and I think it's a great way to learn the Socratic method, asking people questions until you come to some kind of truth.
Most definitely.
All right. Well, thanks so much for the call. I'm glad you installed Skype too. It's just that easy. Uh, Give us a call anytime. We're going to open up the lines again, though.
Okay, will do, Thomas. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And you can call back anytime. I would like to get some regular callers going on the show. I think that'll be good for the show and good for the callers. And if you'd like to call us right now on Skype, World Crypto Network, all one word. We did have a couple of other people look like they were trying to call. So we are going to keep the lines open. And we're just looking at the price of Bitcoin, which is around 6,557. We're going to have to zoom in a little bit more, as much fun as it was to look at that far out view. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, Thomas. This is Mustafa again. Today I'm calling you from Chicago.
All right. Moving around the world. What are you thinking about Bitcoin today?
The United States. I drive a big rig.
Oh, nice. Nice, man.
Yeah. So that's why every time I call you, I'm in a different city and state.
Well, that keeps it interesting, man. It mixes it up. I have no idea where you're going to be.
Exactly. Neither do I, honestly. It just kind of works out that way. I was in Vegas about a month ago, but I think I missed you.
Oh, nice, man. Yeah, I just got here. It's getting set up back then.
Yeah,
but yeah, we're
come
getting
up for a meetup if I'm ever back in that area.
That would be great, man. Yeah, it's going to be a cool meetup. Yeah, we've got one Thursday night.
Coming out to Chicago anytime soon?
No, I was kind of there virtually today. I was playing that video game Watch Dogs. It's this hacking kind of version of Grand Theft Auto. You walk around, and it has the real map of Chicago. It's really fun.
Does it? Oh, you're talking about the first one, maybe not.
Yeah, the second one's San Francisco, but the first one's Chicago. So.
Right. Yeah, that's a pretty cool game. I'm not a big fan of Ubisoft though, so I won't give it too much credit. But what I mean, I was just calling in because I was surprised you had a second show today. I was watching the earlier one you did this morning, which was interesting. You had a few callers. You had the one guy from the Vault Toro or something.
Yep, Vaultoro, the gold Bitcoin exchange. It's a pretty cool exchange.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's I'm thinking about maybe hitting them up, maybe get trade some of my crypto in for gold,
It's definitely a good way to hold your profits. Of course, you're holding them in the gold, so it's another speculative interest instrument a little bit. But yeah, it's a great place to take out some profits and a way to hold a little bit of gold.
Right. And, for the sake of diversification, I mean, I'm definitely for Bitcoin as the probably the best investment of the century, in my opinion. So I wouldn't really recommend any other investment. But just in case, you never know what could happen. The Bitcoin hit $20,000 and we didn't do anything about it. So that's more responsible this time.
But remember, we only had 2 or 3 days there where it was around 20,000. So I think a lot of us were in shock. We had no idea what to do with that money. And now it's like, oh, we could have sold it to pay rent. That would have been a good idea. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I could have paid off my car. I could have paid off all the debt that I'm under. Whatever. Right.
But there's two voices on your shoulder, right? One of the voices is, this is the most number of Bitcoins you'll ever have. You need to hold them forever till they're $1 million. And then you could get, X number of $1 million for this. But then the other voice is like, take some profits, live a good life. And it's hard to listen to both these voices. So.
No, I think I listen to the first voice a lot more than the second. I mean, hopefully it'll work out in the end, but yeah, man, I honestly to this day have never sold a Bitcoin or any part of it. I've traded Bitcoins for other cryptocurrencies as a way of thinking that I'm smart, but not, just I'm not. But never really went back to fiat. Is what I'm trying to say.
Well, and that I think that just shows the reasonableness of your investment and the fact that you have a job and you can keep working. And as long as this is kind of a side investment, you don't have to worry about it that much. And I think that's the way to go because this is still a really speculative industry. It has gone up crazy. It could go up crazy again. And like that guy, Tom Lee from Fundstrat Advisors say, if you're out of the market, you're going to miss those days when it goes crazy up. You're also going to miss those days when it goes crazy down, but so it goes.
Right. I mean, I have a lot of my friends that have sold some or most of what the Bitcoin that they had that they bought, in like the second half of last year. And I'm like, man, what are you guys doing? You're either losing money or you're breaking even right now, or maybe making like a 10-15% profit on your investment, and they're like, yeah, I don't want to lose, I'm trying to get out right now because I don't want to lose. You see the price, it keeps going down, and I'm like, look at the short history of Bitcoin. It went up, it went down, it went up again, and it went down and it keeps going up, but every time it goes up, it goes higher.
Well, the other thing to try to do is
time that's going to happen.
The other thing to try to do is if you could get them to go 50-50 or 70-30, and at least that way you can keep some of your money in the investment. You can have a little less risk. And the other thing is that what disappoints me and it frustrates me is that people have lots of investments. They have a job. They're doing just fine, but it's their $1,000 in Bitcoin that they have to sell first. They have $1,000 in the stock market. They have $1,000 in savings, but they're going straight to that Bitcoin. And it's just like, I think you're cutting yourself short there. I agree. It's definitely your most risky investment. It could go to zero. It could go to 1 million. But there's upside risk and there's downside risk. And you want that upside risk.
Yeah. And I always try to make the argument for sound money, and that's probably the hardest argument to make just because people don't fully understand it. And it takes a while. And I know it took a long time for me to fully understand what the meaning of sound money was, and that's why I always tell them, well, you're holding a whole bunch of crypto. Sell everything else but Bitcoin. If you're scared, if you're having doubts about the cryptocurrency market in general, move as much as you can into Bitcoin, and that'll the safest advice I can give anybody that's in the cryptocurrency or that has invested in cryptocurrency.
I definitely think that's the way to go. And it's tough for people. They see them losing all their investment. They want to get out or they want to get back in. But remember, if you're looking at it on a long scale, it started off much lower than this. So it can go lower. It could go higher. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've got introduced to Bitcoin like towards the end of 2013, right after the Mt. Gox thing, right after it hit, before, I guess, right after it went up to like 1,000 for the first time and started coming down. And that's when, everybody was talking about it. And that's when I first kind of started learning about it and stuff. But when I started telling people about it, it was way less than $500 for a Bitcoin, and I, tried to get everybody to buy, tried to get everybody to let me borrow some money so I can buy, or
Sure.
And it just, it's funny how everybody started getting interested after it passed 5,000, not when it was under 500. It just made no sense. But
they couldn't get into it. They needed the media to be into it. And it's funny when you mentioned sound money, that it's so hard to explain that to people because they have no idea what our current money is. Nobody really spends a lot of time talking about the Federal Reserve endlessly printing digital dollars, printing a lot of real dollars, but even more digital dollars. And just in general, how money's made, how the system works, how Nixon was able to take us off of the gold standard. Nobody talks about this. Maybe that's
it's hard to tell people that because it makes no sense from a logical standpoint. Like, why would you keep doing that? Why would you keep printing money? It's just devaluing your own currency. So people are like, no, it's impossible. Why would they do that? It's going to hurt the whole country. And I'm like, it's going to hurt the whole world because we're on the dollars. The dollar is the world reserve currency. So, you got to take care of yourself because nobody else will. And most people they still have full faith in our government, unfortunately.
A lot of people don't want to see what's under the hood. They have this, like, parts of the conversation or parts of the world are blocked off. A lot of people have religious blocks or political blocks where you can't talk about this or you can't talk about that. And I think money is one of those blocks. People think that the financial markets are too difficult to understand. They don't know how money's made. They don't know how stocks work or commodities or any of these things. And they're okay with that. I try to be the other way nowadays. I used to be kind of okay with not knowing some things, but now I want to know everything. I want to know, how cars work, how the human body works, all kinds of things that I wasn't that interested in before. Because I find the more that I know about this or that, the more it connects to something else that I know, and then it comes up in some other conversation, and just more knowledge pleases me. So I hope that more people.
Actually, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I know I definitely have that. Whenever I speak to somebody that's never traveled, never been outside the United States, which is, quite a bit of people. Most, why would you need to leave the U.S., right? You have everything you need. So, whenever I meet people that have not traveled, those are the ones that are usually very, I don't want to say closed-minded, but like not open to any of that type of discussion, But when I talk to people that have traveled different countries, or when I'm traveling and I speak to people in different countries, you find that they have a completely different outlook on life, and they can see that, they can see through, excuse my language, but the bullshit. They can see through all the bullshit. They can tell, like, yeah, of course the dollar can't hold that world reserve currency forever. Of course everybody's looking for their own personal gain, and that's just how it is.
I definitely think so. And I think thinking back to that article that Anthony Bourdain wrote, I read it on the air a couple days ago, and of course he passed away recently. It's very sad. But what he talks about is how everyone wants to share their food if they have enough. Everyone's proud of their food. Everyone's proud of their family and their children and their brothers and sisters and cousins. And the more you think about it, we are all people, and we are all connected in these ways, and we all share these things. So even Bitcoin, traveling, going to another country, seeing that, they have bread in the store too. It's not very different, or sadly, they don't have bread in the store, depending on the country. But yeah, it does connect us together. I think travel is very valuable.
Yeah, it is very valuable because it opens your mind to how to reality. People can get so caught up in their own country with their own issues and their own their own little world, regardless of whether it's a big country like the United States or some other small country, and it's I think it's probably the worst here just because we're kind of the we're like the popular kid at school when it comes to countries, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody's looking at us, but we're not looking at anybody else. We're only looking in the mirror, so we're kind of like, oh yeah, I'm great, whatever. So we don't need to look at anywhere else, and it kind of hurts. It hurts us. It definitely does.
I think it does, and if you haven't traveled, and travel can be far less expensive than you think. You can also go for a shorter trip, and you can find ways around the high prices depending on what day you fly, things like that. There are ways to pull it off, and like Mustafa is saying, I'm in agreement here. It's far more rewarding than you'd think. You think you're just going somewhere, but you end up gaining a lot more than just going somewhere.
Absolutely, man. That's the two best, the two most important things I'll tell anybody is buy Bitcoin and travel.
Buy Bitcoin and travel. Well, thanks so much for the call, Mustafa. I see we have some other people trying to call in, so we're going to open up the line. But give us a call anytime. Thanks so much. And
okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mustafa. Sorry about that. And here we are. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Live. This is the right place. Hello. I don't want to really specify my name, but yes, I am calling in for Alan. You can call me Poppy if you want.
All right, Poppy, what's on your thoughts about Bitcoin today? What are you thinking?
Well, I actually came to ask you a couple questions about Bitcoin, but not really like the Bitcoin rate and anything. But what would be? I'd like to ask you, what would your opinion be on Bitcoin as a digital market in a socialist country compared to a capitalist one?
Digital market in a socialist country as opposed to a capitalist one.
I don't know if that's mainly the topics you would discuss, but
Oh no, I mean I'll talk about most anything political or otherwise. One thing I think that you're kind of getting at here is that I think Bitcoin, it teaches you to save. The more that you save money and don't spend it and hold your Bitcoin as the price has been going up, the better off you are. And I think that that's more opposite from a capitalist society, which teaches you to spend. Capitalist society, the more you spend, the more goods you have. Psychologically, you're supposed to feel better. I don't know if you actually do. But as far as fulfilling the goals of the capitalist society, making more money, making the economy bigger, growth, right? Uh, I think Bitcoin's antithetical to that because it's deflationary currency. I think you'd want to have a currency like the dollar or the Venezuelan bolivar or whatever it is, sorry, where you're cranking out more and more of them so the people are then forced or desiring to spend more. So it makes the whole thing go up. Does that line up with what you're thinking, or what do you think on that?
mainly what I'm thinking of as Bitcoin as the, let's say, to go in with the philosophy of socialism itself, as is in socialism, let's say primarily maybe communist socialism, or most corporations are nationalized, and capitalism. I mean, no, I mean Bitcoin. Would it be mainly considered more of like a private company or more of a nationalized thing?
Well, I think it's more of a worldwide thing. It's more of a worldwide money. And I think that what's interesting is that Bitcoin's going to change things whether we like it or not, whether we think it's capitalist or socialist or whatever. It's like the internet, where now that it exists, I can talk to you. And now that it exists, I can send you Bitcoin and you can send it to me. And that's it's a new superpower that we all have. And it's never going away, and it's just getting stronger every day as more and more people get into Bitcoin. And whether we like it or not, whether it has positive or negative effects to this part of the business or that part of the business or this part of the country, much like the music streaming and the MP3s and all that, it's happening anyway. So
I right now, what would you think of Bitcoin in more of smaller growing countries, like less wealthier growing countries, or in general? Do you think currency could be used to replace a national currency in particular?
well, I think it can replace many aspects of a national currency. Think about a country like Venezuela. If they weren't just hoarding the Bitcoin, they could use it to send it around for goods and services. They could have other options there. You could convert it into the national currency to pay the taxes. But mainly, what I'd say now is kind of what we touched on earlier, that for the first time ever, there's competition for national currencies. If you live in Venezuela and your currency takes a dump, you can now go to Bitcoin. We saw this with the Cyprus event in 2013. In 2013, Cyprus was cracking down on their banks. They were full of foreign money and they were going to raid the foreign money. But everyone else was caught up in this, and you couldn't take more than $100 out of your bank. And people understood right away that the banks were really holding their money and not letting them have it. And these people were able to flee into Bitcoin. Much like the Venezuelan people of today, at least have some kind of a savings account in Bitcoin. It might not have worked that well lately, but you have some kind of option. So I think it's tremendously exciting for the people of these small countries with bad currencies, but it's terrifying for the leaders. Because remember, Bitcoin, you can't print more of them. Even if you're the government, even if you're Bill Gates, even if you come to them and you beg them, please let me print more Bitcoin. I really need to buy this tank. I need to build a bridge. I need to build a dam. You can't. You have to actually raise actual money to pay for the dam. So I think that's going to change things quite a lot, for the better, for the worse. And once again, I think it's coming, whether you like it or not. So it's better to think about how to adapt and be flexible than it is to, curse the ocean because the waves keep coming.
All right, all right. I just have two more questions. I don't know if this would be generally related to like what's around the crypto, but are you lads ever into like GPU mining or hard drive mining?
I know some guys that do the GPU mining. There's a great Bitcoin channel here on YouTube called Bits Be Tripping. Those guys build the big enclosures for their graphics cards, and they know all about which one's the best graphics card. I never really, I mean, we mined a little bit with a graphics card and kind of a script ASIC and an early ASIC, like a Butterfly Labs ASIC back in the day, and we barely broke even. Home mining is very difficult, makes a lot of noise, takes a lot of electricity, makes a lot of heat. You don't really want to home mine anymore. We all love the idea. We want to turn on our computer and wake up in the next morning and have there be money there and more money. But I don't think it's going to happen through home mining. I think that every time someone tells me how much they spent on a miner, they always say, I could have just bought Bitcoin and held it, and I would have made so much more, and I wouldn't have had to deal with all that noise and all the heat and the electricity. So.
Right, right. My last question is, it's a bit more political related, but what would be your opinion on capitalism and socialism, and which one do you think as an ideology would be better?
Oh, well, this is the trap question because I don't know if you know, but I have a big audience of libertarians, and they love to call me statist and socialist and those kind of things. I'm going to come down with a nice answer in the middle. I think there's good sides to both systems. I think that the competition in capitalism can sometimes create great results, but it also creates a lot of losers. I like the compassion of socialism, the idea that we should help these losers and that we could put them back into society and have a safety net, and that we shouldn't give up on anybody. And so I'm going to fall right in the middle of those. I think that as they've been enacted in the real world, we've seen horrible extremes of both of these systems, especially on the socialist side, the communist systems, other terrible systems which have wrecked human cost, both in bad programs, bad plans, killing sparrows, other horrible disasters that these top-down systems have done. But once again, also, I think that you can't really try a socialist country in a capitalist world, and I don't think you could really try a capitalist country in a socialist world, although maybe it would work. But you get my point. It's difficult to have the contrast, but I think in the middle is probably the best solution, as unsatisfying an answer as that might be. So.
As you said, there's been many communist or socialist atrocities. You're probably referring to China and the Soviet Union, but would you consider them actually more of socialist countries? Because really, the Soviet Union, the factories were mainly nationalized, but such things. But it was a class-based society, just between poor and rich. While in socialism, it's meant to be the equal distribution of each classes.
I think one of the ideal forms of socialism that I've seen demonstrated in art is there's this Star Trek episode where the computer controls the society, or maybe a society like Logan's Run, the movie, where the computer can make these dispassionate decisions and the computer can fairly dole out the goods, and we could trust the computer. I think the problem with the way socialism's been implemented in China or Russia would be that it's been kind of a dictatorship of the top down. And at a lot of points, you couldn't trust their plan or where they were distributing the goods or how they were distributing the goods or to who. So I think that those were both kind of flawed examples for socialism. That's why I think that this kind of capitalist socialist hybrid that FDR kind of created here in America may be a better survivor to go towards an environmental economic kind of a Darwinistic system, that maybe this mixture of the two is more flexible and more capable of surviving and serving more goods, good things. So
What this is a bit more of a bizarre question, but what would you think of the Third Reich and Germany? Would you consider it more of capitalist society or an actual national socialist society, as that's where the German that's what they were called, but they based their ideas off of socialism, but in fact many of the things that Hitler did was nationalized things. I forget what he did nationalize, but what would you think with Germany? Would it be socialist or maybe more capitalized the products? Because I know that Benito Mussolini in Italy, he privatized its secondary school education.
all right, well, this is going to be the last question, and we lose the argument because we're discussing Hitler now, and that's a very hot potato. We don't want to touch either side of that. But just in general, personally, as a historian that studied World War II, when I look at what energized the Nazi economy, I think that they were mainly focused on production. So in that way, they were very capitalist. They were focused on the assembly line. They were focused on mass production of tanks, airplanes, ships, things like this. In that way, he really kicked their economy into an overdrive, and that they were able to erase the economic effects of the Peace of Versailles that ended World War I. So economically, I think they're strongly capitalist. I think it's socialism to really put that into them. They did a lot of horrible things, rounding up people, not just Jewish people, but also mentally enfeebled people, homosexual people, other kinds of gypsies, people like this, lower classes. That's not very compassionate. That's not very socialist. That's very destructive to their economy in actual reality, displacing all these people, taking away their work and their jobs. Not good for the whole of society. So yeah, I'd have a hard time putting the socialist label on them, as much as they are the National Socialist Party. So that is in their label. But hopefully we didn't step on any of the landmines there. Don't want to do that. But thanks so much for the call. Give us a call anytime. Work on those questions. Keep stacking them up. Store them up there. And just a programming note, I am going to start cutting people off towards the end of calls. I don't want to be rude to anybody, but I do want to try to keep the show moving. We had some notes in the chat from someone that said they used to run a talk radio show in Tampa, and he had a lot of great notes, and I wish I could follow them all, but for now we are kind of allowing the long calls because we don't have that many calls. But in the future, we will probably be streamlining towards tighter calls. And just in general, I'm going to cut people off at the end. I don't want to be rude, but there it is. And you can give us a call right now on Skype, World Crypto Network, all one word. We're keeping the lines open for at least 10 more minutes. So you can give us a call. We had some tough questions on the last one. They're hitting me with the world history. We're going into the Nazis and the USSR and the World War II. But that's okay. I've read books on that too. I'm good to talk about it. But once again, remember, we're talking about it in history. We're talking about it abstractly. We're trying to understand it. So that's our goal. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, Thomas. It's Summer. It's me, Boss Lady. How is everybody?
We're doing great. What's on your mind about Bitcoin today, Summer?
Well, whatever was on my mind kind of flew out the window after that last call. That was a little out there. But you were asking about Satoshi. Mm-hmm. And Satoshi's been on my mind. Crypto Lark is doing this We Are Satoshi thing, and I think it's a great idea. I know he's getting slack for it, but has anybody heard of Satoshi Square?
Satoshi Square, is it like a trading website or something like that?
Well, from what I understand, Andreas did their 5-year anniversary of Let's Talk Bitcoin recently, and they were talking about it. And I guess basically it was a meetup they had in Times Square in Central Park. And they basically just, met up there, and they knew that would be a place where they could transact peer-to-peer. And they used that meetup, space as an opportunity to kind of build a little network. And from what I understand, and anybody that was, going back there and trading back in the day, I'm sure they kept those numbers, and continued trading over the counter. Because I do all my trades over the counter, peer to peer. Like I'll call up Tone and buy or sell or whatever. We just, call up a friend type of a thing. So I can just imagine the type of volume that those guys are doing now from 5 years ago, right?
Sure, they were trading over the counter at the Satoshi Square. I think it was near Buttonwood, where they had the first stock market, where Wall Street was originally, and they used to just meet up there and trade stocks.
Yeah,
That's how that got
it was
started.
kind of like a slap in the face almost. Like, they can't stop us from meeting here in a public place, and they were doing, I think, tens of thousands from what they were seeing, and I just thought that was pretty amazing. And
It would be amazing if they held on to it, though. The problem with the early Bitcoiners is I know lots of people that had thousands of Bitcoin, and they tell me one after the other, they all spent them. They didn't think much of them. They didn't save any of the change from these purchases, and sometimes they didn't even purchase savory or wonderful materials like alpaca socks that were going to last forever. Some of my friends,
they're so soft, those alpacas.
yeah, if I've heard they're good. I heard Chris Franco told me something like he paid 50 Bitcoins for his socks, and I cried a lot after that. It was pretty terrible. But and I asked him, how were the socks? He's like, I threw them out. They weren't very good. The worst.
Oh man, that's a shame. Like those pizzas, the first 2 pizzas that were bought. But I mean, it wasn't really an expense. It was an investment, right?
No, it was
You have to make purchases in order to keep the system going. It's all good to hodl and everything, but that's not really going to grow the network how it could grow it if we were actually, buying it. If you have fiat, you buy it and then you spend it within the network, and then you buy more. You have to kind of, instead of a square, it's got to be like a circle. It has to be a full circle in order to be an economy, doesn't it?
I agree, and I think what's more important than hodling is probably sharing. If you can get your friends to, take $10 in Bitcoin instead of paying you back for the check or that kind of thing, just spreading the money around. And I know I used to work at Purse.io, and we'd always trade lunches. We'd go out to lunch, and somebody would pay in Bitcoin because they didn't have cash, and somebody would pay in Bitcoin the next day, and it would just keep going around. And in this, we were actually using Bitcoin. You had to have a little bit on your wallet, not that much, 20, 30 bucks, and you could send it around, and eventually you'd get your lunch back in Bitcoin, and you'd pay it back for another lunch.
Exactly. I think that's the easiest way to do it. I mean, if I stop and I think about how much, like probably over hundreds of Bitcoin, I've given away in the last couple of years, just because like that's just what you do. That's just what we did. You meet somebody and we talk to everybody about Bitcoin, the Uber drivers, taxi drivers, when you get my hair done or my nails done, the restaurant. We tip in Bitcoin. I mean, we're really trying to live that lifestyle so people can see that it is possible. I don't recommend it. We're not easy by any means, but like I definitely think we got to start somewhere. So yeah, you were saying something about like a World Crypto Con and stuff. So Ken Bozak and Decentralized TV, Peter Steddington, and Tiho Bear, Arcane Bear, and then the Cryptos News guys, Gabriel. We're all kind of throwing these conferences over the next couple of months. And not really conferences. We're calling them like unconferences or gatherings. But yeah, we should include you in that and make them really big. Tone wants to do it on the yacht. He's like, if it's not on the yacht, I'm not going. How then got spoiled. But yeah, we should definitely like make it really big, and really connect everybody. Why not, right?
Oh yeah, and just keep spreading the word about Bitcoin and meet up with other Bitcoiners. It's so difficult now. Most of the conferences are all about ICOs and getting rich quick and printing your own tokens. And oh, I've got a solution for your problem. You should just print money, and then you can pay the people in the money that you just printed. You're a genius.
Genius. No.
Yeah.
I can't even. It's really hard these days to even like go to the conferences, and it's changed my whole like attitude when I go. I used to be so excited to meet people and hear about what they're working on, but they ain't working on nothing. Scammy ICO, like literally, it's too much for me. And
That's
we
it.
all kind of felt that way. It was just not worth it. There's no way we were paying to go to those conferences. It's got to be out your mind.
Oh no, and I used to actually read my email. I would read it and I would say, "Oh, that sounds like an interesting project. Maybe I could interview that guy. Maybe I could have him on the air." But now it's just blah 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 blah. I am working on an ICO. Blah 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 blah. And I just want to promote it on your thing, and I don't know what to say about it. I go back and forth, and we've been talking about this internally and discussing this and all that. What if you were to review ICOs and to take their money, but to tell people about it and to ask them hard questions anyway? See, part of me thinks that's okay, but part of me is like, yeah, part of me says it's okay, and part of me says that's terrible because then they're going to get promotion and you're going to hear about, ICO coin, and it might be my fault because I told you about it. And, obviously we've been on the sidelines for years while this thing has grown and grown and blown and blown. And all these crazy people are doing all these crazy things and going on all these crazy trips with all their money. And, you kind of want some of it. You're on the sidelines saying, yeah, it'll be fun to, go on a nice trip or have a nice, get paid for an interview or something. But you just have to wonder how much of your credibility you'd lose doing that. So.
Yeah, you have to you definitely have to think of that. And I mean, to me, some extent, I do want to, I do think about the audience, and I think about people that, sometimes I'll make a joke in the chat, scam, and I just laugh. And to me, I'm just laughing and joking. But people have commented to me before, like, oh, like maybe that it's serious, and that people lose their life savings and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I don't really feel sorry, but I guess I should. And I feel bad that I don't feel sorry for people. So I'm caught in the middle sometimes too.
I feel sorry that they lose their money, but
you have to be responsible for your own self. Don't ask me what to invest in. Find out for yourself. Not like I wouldn't tell you anything that that I had. Any knowledge that I have, I share it freely. But I just feel like people, I just don't have the right intentions, and I feel like you could tell them anything, and they're not going to listen to you. They're just going to go and do whatever they want, anyways, and then come back to you when the price drops or whenever. I just don't. I don't know what to do about that.
Well, remember, part of the problem is that people get into this and they've heard about the incredible gains that other people have made from Bitcoin, and they want their own incredible gains. And the truth is,
when we told them, when it was $100, $2.
Oh, but they couldn't listen then. Then it was too risky. It was some crazy internet money, and they're going to put it down a hole. Now that it's gone up in value, now they can invest.
And it's too expensive. $500 for a Bitcoin? Oh no, that's too much money.
I know it is.
What do you want me to say? I've moved on, and I'm tired of that same narrative. Honestly, to be honest with you, what I'm doing? I'm focusing on these kids. Mm-hmm. These kids these days, they are like nothing I've ever seen. They are not like us because they've grown up with digital electronics at their fingertips. My kid's not even in kindergarten, and he knows how to buy and sell Bitcoin. He can get into his wallet, and he knows how to spend that money. He understands what it is. He knows what he can do with it. And just to have that he knows more than a lot of people out here. He's 5 years old. And it really got me thinking, that if we're going to change the way that things are, in the government, or the way that the systems are, it's not going to happen through Trump. It's not going to happen from the top down. I just don't see us getting in there and making any type of change. Their way, even if we had, made some headways, their way to solve everything is violence and coercion. So you're going to end up getting into a fight that you're not going to win. But I feel like if we can scale the edges, and if we can connect and get to these kids before they're brainwashed and before they're, just sucked into thinking that everything that they see on TV is real, I think that that's the only way we're going to have any hope, Well,
and I think that's an exciting way for kids to learn about Bitcoin. Things like paying them their allowance in Bitcoin, or if they do a special task, they get a little bit of Bitcoin. I've heard about kids that were selling kind of coffee mugs with Bitcoin on them years ago at the conferences. And now they have lots of money. They can buy an Xbox, and they can save the rest of their money for college. And I think that's amazing. Kids have never had that chance before.
Exactly. Yes. And see, my daughter, she's 17. She just graduated high school, and she's not going to go to college. I don't think. I'm giving her the opportunity to see if she can, be successful without it, and just see that there's other things out there, I don't know. I think college is kind of a waste of time at this point. She's going to go there for 4 years, and the things that she's going to study, these jobs are not going to be around by the time she gets out of school 4 or 5 years from now. Come on now. AI, machine learning, any type of jobs that you see 90% of the people doing right now, I don't see them being around for much longer. And so I just don't want to set her up for failure. We have a responsibility to them. Can't just make it seem like, oh yeah, everything's going to be the same as it was. No, things change. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, they're a lot different. Things look a lot different, but somehow we go along thinking that, everything's the same as it always has been. And I think that's a mistake on our part. So look out for us when we travel and stuff. We're going to be in Vegas. We're going to be all over. Ken is having a meetup Thursday. This Thursday, guys, in Toronto, it'll be a meetup. Ken Bozak, Kevin Moore, and a bunch of sponsors, a bunch of cool people out there. So if you want to go out there and support, and then we're going to make it to Dogecoin, I think, after that.
Well, that sounds great. And keep us updated about your travels. That sounds cool.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Thomas. Thanks.
All right. Thanks so much. And give us a call anytime. And that was interesting what she was saying right there about college. I was going to go out on the limb here and disagree. I know a lot of, to generalize, a lot of you libertarians are not fans of colleges. There's a lot of liberal bias there, and there's all kinds of things. But for me, I think college does teach you how to focus on a task, how to specialize in that task and that focus. And that when you get out of it, if you learned what I think they're trying to teach you, you have this flexible mind that can solve problems. And I think that's a valuable thing to have. As far about the future, though, I tell everybody computer programming. You need to know how to do computers. You need to know how computers work. You need to be able to think on computers. I think that college is a pretty good place to learn computers. It's not the be all and end all. I know a lot of programmers that are self-taught. They learn a little bit and they learn other things. But I think that college is a pretty decent idea. I'm not saying that she should go to college and just kind of float through it and not focus on it. I think that if you are serious about it and you do focus on it, there's a lot you can learn there. And it doesn't matter the school or the conditions, or a lot of people are telling me, yeah, you can't learn there and it's too liberal or it's too conservative or whatever. I think you can make the best of the conditions and that there is a lot to learn there. They're saying in the chat that college does teach you how to learn. And that's what I think. It teach you how to learn place. And if you already know how to learn and you already know how to look things up on your own and how to follow through and how to read more and more advanced texts, then you're on your way. I'm not saying that you have to go there to learn how to learn, but if you're a young person and you don't know how to learn and you can attend college and focus on it, I think there's a lot you can gain there. I respect you guys having other opinions on that. I'm not trying to shout down your opinion. But it is starting to be 9 o'clock here on the West Coast, or the West inland coast, or whatever I'm on these days. So we're going to go towards the end of the show. Just a reminder that you can support this show by donating to the Bitcoin address on your screen right now. It doesn't have to be a half Bitcoin or anything. It could be $5-10. No problem. If you'd like to support us monthly with a credit card, you can just charge it and forget it. You could do $5, $10 a month on the Patreon/WCN, and also on the Patreon/Mad Bitcoins. We are running 2 of them right now because maybe that'll work better than just having one. But I was going to read you a little bit more of my long story that I wrote, To Satoshi with Love. It's kind of a story, like a novel. And if you don't like it, you don't have to listen. You could just turn it off. But I'm going to read a little bit more until the next section break. And then we're going to end this show. We'll be back again tomorrow morning with more Bitcoin Talk Show. I'll try to keep up the 2-a-days for a little while, but I do have movies to watch. I have a life, So, but here we go. A little bit more of To Satoshi with Love. So I'm supposed to believe you wrote Bitcoin because you're an alien? Your spaceship looks like the Ethereum logo, by the way. How do you explain that? What's Ethereum? Wait a minute. Don't be ridiculous. How could you be Satoshi Nakamoto and not know what Ethereum is? Don't you keep up with the times? I've been on my way here for 5 years. I sent the Bitcoin program ahead, and since then I've been incommunicado. Didn't you ever wonder why I left? We all thought it was because Gavin Andresen went to speak at the CIA and followed it off with a visit to the Council on Foreign Relations. Nah, I've never really been that interested in local politics. I'm mainly interested in Bitcoin. I had to stop communicating because I had to go into suspension to get here. Didn't anybody ever think of that? Anybody? Not really. No one has really speculated that Satoshi was an alien. Most people think that you were a team that probably included many cryptographers working together under an alias to change the world. But alien? No. However, many think that Vitalik Buterin, the creator of Ethereum, is an alien. Are you sure you haven't heard from him? Or maybe met him on your planet? I don't have a planet. I'm a traveler of the stars. And no, I haven't heard of this Vitalik. But what is this, his Ethereum? It's a global computer that runs smart contracts. You use a token called Ether or gas to pay for the contracts. A lot of people think it's a major competitor to Bitcoin, but others aren't so sure. How do you get the gas? Satoshi said with a smile. He had a quirky, dirty sense of humor. It's a token called Ethereum that's mined and traded on many exchanges. How can you have enough contracts for the world with a limited supply of Ethereum? There isn't a limited supply. He didn't like this. He was pacing again. If there isn't a limited supply, how can you tell the value of the token? He said, grinning again. Satoshi seemed to treat conversation as a chess game, with a winner and a loser, both sides clearly drawn. You said you don't use Bitcoin daily, but you do run contracts often? Not yet, but the token has a speculative value. A speculative value, but you don't know how many there are and how many will be printed. I'm afraid so. I don't like it, he said. I knew you wouldn't. You'd just prefer the tokens to be sold by Ethereum, the company, directly, and you could buy them when you wanted to run a smart contract at a fixed cost. You're reading my mind. But then it wouldn't have the market effect, and the creators wouldn't be able to cash out for $30 million. Really? Right, he said, pausing again. Really? $30 million? And he didn't even sell at the peak. But look who's talking, billionaire. If you really are Satoshi, which you've not provided proof for, by the way, it could be that Craig Wright has broken into my house in a cheap alien disguise. You really think this disguise is cheap? He said, pulling on his skin. It stuck like real skin. There was also no makeup lines under his t-shirt or his arm. It was either a really professional Hollywood makeup job, or he really was an alien. Really, though, the $1 billion. Do you have it? Can I have some? I said, smiling. Why not ask Wayne for a grant, I figured. Price of Bitcoin's gone up quite a bit while I'm traveling, eh? What's it at? 10,000? 20,000? 700. Really? $700,000 so quickly? That's quite something. Let me sit down. He stopped his pacing and collapsed in my easy chair. The dog came over to get petted, and the alien complied. We see who really runs things. $700. Dollars? Really? Why so low? Hasn't it spread across Americas and the world? Have you all been spending your time with your Ethereum computers and your shit coins that you've already forgotten Bitcoin? I read you people were fickle, but I never expected this. Really takes the cake, this does. So now I'll have to promote it as well. Great. Program it, promote it, send the signal across galaxies. Just do it all, Satoshi. Just do it all. Excuse me? What? Just talking to myself. Most interesting person I know. Myself. He seemed quite satisfied at this, sitting back further in the chair, kicking out the legs. So Bitcoin's not popular, but Ethereum is. Not really. Bitcoin and Ethereum are about equal. They're both called cryptocurrencies and really only used by computer geeks and libertarian anarchist types. What's a libertarian? They believe in liberty. They see Bitcoin as a free currency because it's not owned by any government. They hate government. They call it the state, as in state's got a state, and so forth. And the anarchists, are they a more extreme wing of these liberty people? Not really. Some are more punk rock, and others just want to destroy things, but the actual political movement is a more nuanced tribalism, lacking central authority, while sometimes still having concepts such as universal rights. I think you're overdoing it, Professor. Some of these ideologies are interesting, but all of them really break down when you get robbed by a man on the road. Who will catch the robber? Who will build the road? Etc., etc. Anyway, they're into Bitcoin because they like the permanent ledger, the infinite traceability. Nah, they're trying to change all those things with the altcoins, and even Bitcoin is starting to move away from them more and more as serious corporations adopt it and try to take it away from them, sometimes with force. They're also trying to separate the blockchain from Bitcoin. Oh, yeah? What do they think they'll do with that? He had become distracted and had wheeled the chair over to my computer and seemed to be hacking away. He had about 4 console windows filling the screen and seemed to use the keyboard entirely. He had an odd way of typing and seemed to hunt and peck, but know where the keys were at the same time. I think he was just out of practice. Seems like a really long chat. Oh, there it is. There's an end. They think they're going to establish value and sell it at an ICO for a huge amount of money, real money. Most of them have, despite ICOs being pretty much illegal under any reasonable reading of the law. They do first and build huge companies with lawyers and then negotiate for a slap on the wrist. ICO? Initial coin offering. They print their own coin. I coughed twice to signal a joke. Token. They print their own token. And then they sell some of them in a crowd sale at a reasonable price. They hold back others. Someday, if their project's a success, they'll be able to sell the other tokens, at a great profit. It's happened more times than I can count. Really? He said, as he pulled out a USB stick and stuck it in my computer. At least I think it was USB. It looked alien, but somehow still compatible. Hey, what are you doing? That's a secure system. I have my files on there, man. Your files are fine. Remember, I'm an expert. Oh, yeah? You're going to get me $1 billion now? For $1 billion, you can have the laptop. I have backups. Sadly, friend, there is no $1 billion. I never take the early coins. It seems unsporting. And besides, like I mentioned, it's infinitely traceable. No, my good friends, those coins are burnt. I was going to show you the proof. I walked over to the computer and saw a few addresses. I copied and pasted it into my own machine into blockchain.info. The keys matched. He was Satoshi Nakamoto. And that's about it from a longer than I thought reading of To Satoshi with Love, a little novel thing that I wrote during National Novel Writing Month last year. And I did some edits too. And I think it's a nice little story. It's fun. And that's about it for this episode of Bitcoin Talk Show After Dark. Until next time, bye-bye.